The Islamic State wants to bring on the end of the world. This is SkyWatchTV News for Wednesday, July 29th, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. A recruiting document from the Islamic State printed in Urdu, which is a language spoken mostly in Pakistan and India, and provided to the American Media Institute by a Pakistani citizen with links inside the Taliban, seems to be an authentic recruiting document, and it claims that the Islamic State does, in fact, want to provoke the United States into a climactic war to bring on the apocalypse. They hope to start this war by attacking India, and is looking for recruits inside the Taliban in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. Western intelligence officials consider this document to be authentic. The 32-page document says it wants to unite the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and other Islamic factions into one fighting force serving the caliphate. This war leading, of course, to the end of the world battle at Dabiq, which is the small town in Syria, northeast of Aleppo, where the Turkish government wants to establish an Islamic State-free zone. The goal of the Islamic State, according to this document, and I quote, to take over the entire world and behead every last person that rebels against Allah. Meanwhile, in Turkey, the Kurds are retaliating against the Turkish government. Rebels hit government housing for police and judicial officials with rockets late yesterday. No one was hurt. A Turkish news agency says the Kurdish Workers' Party, or the PKK, was responsible for the attack. Turkey's parliament meeting today in a closed-door session to discuss a response to this attack. This is a real problem for NATO and for President Obama. Turkey and the Kurds are both allies, we think, in the fight against the Islamic State. But Turkey's Air Force has been bombing the Islamic State in Syria and bombing the Kurds in Iraq. And the Kurds are the only fighting force in the region that has shown any ability so far to hold up against the Islamic State. Christians in Iraq, the Assyrian community in particular, are uneasy allies with the Kurds. Many of the Christian communities in the Nineveh plain were overrun by ISIS when the Peshmerga, that's the Kurdish militia, withdrew last summer. This fight, regardless of how it goes, not going to be good for those few Christians who actually remain in northern Iraq. The discovery of Earth 2.0, bad news for God. So says a former senior policy analyst and advisor for the White House. Jeff Schweitzer, writing in the Huffington Post, says that the finding of planet Kepler 452b, which is called Earth's nearest discovered twin to date, moves us closer to the idea that life is common in the universe, which would be, in his mind, a bad thing for religion, because it would mean the Bible is wrong, he thinks. He predicts the future discovery of life elsewhere in the universe will prompt religious leaders to retcon the Bible. Retcon is a term used in television, when writers for a television series have to rewrite the show's history in order to make the current storylines make sense. To declare that alien life is fully compatible with the Bible. Now, maybe Mr. Schweitzer hasn't been paying attention. Perhaps we need to send him copies of Exo Vaticana and On the Path of the Immortals, Tom Horn and Chris Putnam's books, because the Vatican has been doing this now for quite some time. But setting aside Mr. Schweitzer's somewhat condescending tone, his knowledge of Scripture and theology is lacking. God created mankind in his image. Now, that doesn't mean that God is about 6 feet tall, has 2 arms, 2 legs, 20 appendages. It does mean that mankind, humans, are God's moral agents on earth, his imagers, if you will. Translating the Hebrew, which is more nuanced, into English is sometimes difficult. So the Bible doesn't tell us whether life exists anywhere else in the universe. We don't know whether there are actual aliens on Zeta Reticuli. But if there were, it would not change mankind's status as God's imagers on earth. We are still created in his image. And so, if a UFO lands on the White House lawn and a little green man appears and says, "Take me to your leader," that would not and should not affect your faith as a Christian. We can argue about evolution later. Meeting E.T. in the flesh, an authentic, honest-to-goodness E.T., should have no more effect on the Christian faith than the discovery of the first dinosaur bone. Many of which, by the way, now have, it's now known, have blood vessels and soft tissue preserved inside, which scientists previously thought could not be preserved more than about 2 million years, even under ideal conditions, frozen. But they're still 65 million years old. So with all due respect to Mr. Schweitzer, maybe we Christians just aren't quite as uninformed as he would like to think. Speaking of science, by the way, it looks like the climate alarmists have been caught out again. Massive tampering with the data at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Temperature data released by NOAA recently claimed to show a sharp increase in temperatures in the U.S. in recent years. See, but there's a big difference between the measured temperatures and the reported temperatures. In fact, as you see, the measured temperatures show a long-term cooling trend in the U.S. The data, as it was massaged by researchers at NOAA, reversed the temperature trend by almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit, changing it from a cooling trend to a warming trend. This was accomplished by falsifying missing data for rural areas in the country. Data from urban areas was plugged in to fill the gaps in the data record. Almost half the temperature data is thus imaginary, guesswork. And when they transfer it from an urban area, where the asphalt and the concrete and the steel serves as a giant heat sink, to rural areas, it makes it appear as though things are warmer than they actually are. Creates the illusion of warming where there is none. And by the way, this week, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton announced her climate change initiative, says that if she's elected, she'll build 500 million solar panels around the country, which may not be a bad idea. Calling herself a grandmother with 2 eyes and a brain, she criticized Republican candidates who are, for the most part, skeptical of the settled science. And here's a picture of Hillary boarding a private jet just hours after delivering her kickoff speech announcing her climate change initiative. The French-made aircraft on which Mrs. Clinton flew burns 347 gallons of fuel per hour and costs about $6,000 an hour to rent. You see, climate change is not about saving the planet, it's about control. It is technocracy in action. Technocracy based on the belief that science holds all of the answers, life, the universe, and everything. Social, political, spiritual. Technocracy based on the belief that science is the truth, as opposed to we Christians who believe that Jesus Christ is the truth. The ultimate goal is global government, a modern restoration of the ancient kingdom of Nimrod. It's an infrastructure that's being built for a future one-world government, which, as Christians, we understand very clearly has strong prophetic significance. In Kentucky, a coal miner is dead after getting bit by a snake during a church service. A 60-year-old man was handling the snake during a service at a Pentecostal church in Jensen, Kentucky. He refused medical treatment for the snake bite because of his belief that Mark 16:18 means Christians are immune to venom. The verse says, "They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." Now, we see one example of this in Scripture when Paul shook the viper from his hand as he was witnessing to pagans on the island of Malta. This is in Acts chapter 28. But this passage in Mark, where Jesus is talking, is to be understood in the context of the dangers that faced the apostles, the disciples, you and me, when we witness and take the gospel to all corners of the earth. Jesus did not intend for handling venomous snakes to be a test of our faith. But times are getting difficult for the faithful. There's no question about that. We talk about the spread of violent Islam overseas, even attacks here on our shores, our society's transformation into a post-Christian culture, the signs of the coming Antichrist, according to author Terry James from RaptureReady.com. He was Gary Stearman's guest on SkyWatchTV last night. You can watch that program today, if you missed it, on our SkyWatchTV Roku channel. If you have a Roku account, log on and search the Roku channel store for SkyWatchTV. You'll find us there. Or if you want, log on to skywatchtv.com/Roku, where we've posted specific instructions on how to add the SkyWatch TV channel to your account. We'll also have that program posted to our official YouTube channel, and you see the address to the YouTube channel on your screen now. You can find that there as well as the archive of these daily updates. So whether it's on your TV, Roku, or your computer via YouTube, you find all of these channels, all of these programs, all of these updates available on command, on demand, and in your schedule. If you have comments, questions, or suggestions about our weekly program or about these daily updates, things we can do to make them more interesting, topics that you'd like us to cover, please send those to dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. And thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.